You're still very young. You don't need medication. You have normal cycle. No indication that anything was wrong with me. Sends me back on my way. Try again for another year. I went in to see you. One thing I'm always going to remember you telling me is you need to see a specialist, a fertility specialist. And you said, go somewhere in the medical center. What do you mean early menopause? You have less than a 5% chance of conceiving. I still don't know what that means. He said, you're pretty much running out of eggs. Maybe it's the universe's way of telling you you have to try it. This is your last resort. Then she calls, she's, I've been talking to my husband. I'm willing to carry your baby, be your surrogate.
Before you hear this episode of the Menopod, if you feel that it's time to make a change and you want to join the Urogenius family, reach out to us at HoustonUrogynecology.com or 832-831-0362. You can also check us out on Instagram or Facebook. Our handle is The Pelvic MD. Enjoy. Welcome to the Menopod. We're here with one of my favorite people of all time. This is Miss Isabel Reyna, who's been a patient of mine forever. And I'm more than honored to have her here to talk about one of the most interesting stories I've had with a patient in 20 years. And we are actually going to talk about a very uncomfortable topic. We're going to talk about premature menopause, which is menopause before the age of 40. And so I'm going to let Isabel take it away with her beautiful self. So she looks like this all the time. And tell me your story. Tell me from the moment we met up to the moment we are now and what your hormonal journey has been.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for having me.
A pleasure.
I do want to share my story because I've been through a lot, and I think I'm going to say in my community, but I mean, in my culture, but I feel like when I opened up about my issues, had a lot of friends open up as well and ask me questions. Mm-hmm. So we met about 10 or 11 years ago. Mm-hmm. I believe it was 2014 or 2015 when I met you. I was referred over to you by my doctor, just, nothing that
general GYN.
Yeah, that's it. Mm-hmm. And I just started going to you for, just my annual exams. Mm-hmm. Prior to going to meeting you, I was 23 when I was married, when my husband and I got married. And I was about 25 when we wanted to start a family. Mm-hmm. Those 2 years prior, never was I on any kind of birth control. It was just kind of one of those things. If it happens, it happens, But we got really serious about actually trying to conceive at about 25. So went to my doctor at the time, who was an older Middle Eastern lady. And she refused to give me any medication, didn't check me for anything, just said, go back, you're really young, go back home, try again for another year and come back and see me. Mm-hmm. I leave, come back the next year. She tells me the same thing. You're still very young. You don't need medication. You have normal cycles. No indication that anything was wrong with me, Sends me back on my way. Try again for another year. Come back the third time. She's gone.
Right.
So now have to start over, tell my story all over again to the new doctor that's
Magical there. Shifting OBGYNs.
Same thing, just general questions, just what are your cycles like? What are you feeling? So on and so on. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. So she prescribes me some Clomid and just sends me on my way. Right. Doesn't tell me what it's for. Just says, take this. This is going to help. Me being I think I was 28 at the time. You don't feel sick. You don't feel any different. So you just kind of, okay.
I'll take this.
Yeah. And that medication made me feel really weird for a while. And made my breast really tender to the point where it hurt to walk because they're just really tender. So I stopped taking it, you know, and we kind of just said, whatever happens, you know. During that time, well, you know, the next year I went in to see you. That's when I told you what was happening. And we decided to try IVF. You recommended. He's like, hey, why don't you look into IVF?
Right.
You know.
Fertility guys, I mean, that's what they do, right? All day, right? So.
One thing I'm always going to remember you telling me is you need to see a specialist, a fertility specialist. And you said, go somewhere in the medical center. And that's when I went home and I said, okay, maybe he doesn't have to be in the medical center, but he has to be, or they have to be a fertility specialist. So that's when I found the clinic that I used at that time. And same thing, same questionnaire, did a semen analysis on my husband. He was good. I was good. I had regular cycles. No indication that anything was wrong with me.
Right.
Was told that I was a perfect candidate for IVF. Okay. That was a pricey procedure. Paid that. Ordered my medication. It came in. And take my first dose, which were injections in the abdomen area. First of all, I was terrified of needles. I think at
I don't know how you got through that.
So let me tell you. I remember laying down. We were at work, and my husband and I worked here because we own a business. So I set my timer on. I said, okay, we got to go. You have to inject me right now. I had nowhere to lay down. So I go in the kitchen, and I'm laying, in the break room, and I'm laying on the table. And he gives me my first round, you know, and my first dose. So the next day I go into the doctor's office, they check my levels, so on and so on. That same day, on my way home, well, first of all, I'm already scared because my husband left out of town that night. He was going to be back the next day, which meant I had to either give myself the injections or go to mom's house so she can give them to me. So I was kind of like, I was worried about that. Anyways, they tell me, go do my lab work on my way to my mother's house because I was not going to do it myself. I get a call from the nurse and she's like, Dr. Such and Such said, you have to stop taking this medication right now. So what do you mean? It's like, you just have to stop taking it right now. Don't take anything today. Come in tomorrow morning. Okay, so I'm scared. My husband gets home the next day. We go into the doctor and he sits there and he says, well, your FSH levels came back really high. And what are the what's the normal range?
Oh, you don't want it over like 25.
Okay. Mine was at 128.
Ooh.
So I didn't know what that
meant. Of course.
Didn't know what that meant. He tells me, well, what it translates to is premature ovarian failure or early menopause, he said. So I sat there. I'm like, wait, what do you mean early menopause? You know, I'm 28. What do you mean early menopause? Doesn't that happen to like 58-year-old ladies or something? I don't know.
Right.
I have periods.
Right.
You know, they're on time every month and they're normal, 3 to 5 days. It's like, well, this is what it means. And he starts telling me. I said, okay, well, what do we have to do? I thought maybe I had to get on medication or something. You know, I don't know what that means. Yeah, I'm like, let's do it. Do I would take supplements? Like, give them to me. Is it something that you sell here?
Absolutely.
So he said, no, unfortunately, what that means is that you have less than a 5% chance of conceiving. Okay. again, I still don't know what that means. He said, you're pretty much running out of eggs. So if you were to even try, the possibility of us having a really good egg to inseminate, it's very, very low. And the quality won't be as good either. So I said, okay, what now? I'm a problem solver.
Right. Double blow.
I'm a problem solver. You give me a problem, tell me how I can fix it, and I'm going to fix it.
Right.
You're going to tell me I have to stand on my head for 30 minutes every day. I'm going to do it. Like, what would I need to do to fix it, right? And then that's when he says, well, it means that you can't have kids. I had no emotion at that time. I was just like numb. And I think when I clicked out of it was when my husband reached over and grabbed my hand and squeezed it. And at that moment, I remember like it just hitting me. I was like, is this real? Like, you're telling me I can't have kids. So he asked me if I had seen any other specialists before, so on and so on. So I did tell him my story about when I was 25 and such and such. And I remember him saying, wow, you lost 3 years when we could have gotten good eggs. And I remember going, how was I supposed, well, I remember thinking to myself, how does she not know? And I guess I said it out loud, and his response was, you had no indication that anything was wrong.
Right.
Or that there was any changes in your body. So if you have no symptoms, she can't
investigate.
Yeah.
Ooh, big blow.
Yeah.
Big blow. And so, I mean, time went by. And so how did you reconcile that, right? I mean, culturally, right? You start to feel like you're failing, right? You feel like your body's failing you. Your mother and your mother-in-law are like, come on, lady.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so what is that journey like?
Well, I laugh now because I feel like there's a medical explanation and a scientific explanation to everything. You know, stuff doesn't just happen. I'm Catholic, you know, but I'm also a realist, like, you know. And I remember my mom, the first time I told her I can't have kids, and she didn't know what to say. Hispanic mothers never really know what to say. And I remember her just sitting. We're just sitting in the kitchen, in the kitchen table, and she's like, well, what can you do? Oh, you know what? I know this lady. She's like a holistic natural healer, and she does like massages. We'll go to her, and maybe it's your cervix. Like something's going on, right?
Right.
So
She gonna try to fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She, and she's like, you know, we get there, and I remember the lady, we get there, and the lady said, sorry, not my cervix, my uterus. And she said, I know what the problem is. You can't have children. And I remember thinking to myself, I haven't even told you what's wrong. I literally just got here. First of all, it was in her garage, a house in the middle of, it was just in a neighborhood. Drive up. I park in her driveway because she has this really long driveway, and there's no indication where to park. And the little Hispanic old lady walks out, and she's like, don't park on my driveway. You need to park on the street. Okay. Move. Walk in. She's like, you can't have kids. She was referred by a friend, so I think my friend told her, because how else would she know?
Right.
You know, and Facebook wasn't really a thing, you know, like I wasn't announcing it to the world.
Right.
So she starts doing her massages, and she's like, oh, your uterus is tilted. So what it means is that it's like a pitcher. It's just tilted. And you can't get pregnant like that. So we need to do massages. You need to come in twice a week or once a week. I don't remember. I think it's once a week for 2 months. and you need to do these massages. It's going to cost you $150, and you have to drink this tea. So mom's like, well, what do you have to lose? Well, mom, I have $150 to lose every week on top of the tea that she's making me drink, which I don't even know what it is.
That's right.
It could be grass for all I know. I know dead leaves that she just raked up.
It's a tea, and it will untilt your uterus.
Yes.
Whew.
So that was one thing that I'm always going to remember my mom, doing that with my mom. That was her input. Like, hey, let's try this. Mm-hmm. My mother-in-law, on the other hand, is a Catholic as well. And she's all about, let's pray to these saints. Mexicans are like that. Mm-hmm. You're low on funds. Let's pray to this saint. You have someone envious in your life. Let's pray to this other saint. There's saints all over the place.
Intercession everywhere.
Yes. So my mother-in-law came back and she brought me this saint. I don't even know what the saint's name is. It's horrible. But she said, this is a saint of fertility. And it has a baby saint on it. Put it somewhere. Every time you walk by it in your house, ask it with all of your heart to bring you a baby. Mm-hmm. So here I have it in my kitchen because that's where I'm always at. And I don't even know where the baby is, honestly. I think my cleaning lady's probably broken.
Baby.
Because it was in the saint's hands before before I even had a baby.
Okay.
So I have no idea. I think they broke it. I really do. Because it was there.
Maybe it's a sign because the baby was in the saint's hands. So,
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was one thing. Another thing was this rock that she asked me that I had, she said, you have to carry this rock. It has been blessed, so on and so on. So here I am carrying this rock around. She's like, you have to sleep with it, carry it everywhere you go. I put it under my pillow. I don't know how long I lasted with that rock, but I don't know where that rock is.
Okay. So without the rock, and the baby is not with the saint.
No.
But somehow we got a baby.
We do.
So how do we get the baby?
Well, the baby came after, he didn't come that easy. No, first of all.
He did not.
That was chapter 1 of my fertility journey. Chapter 2 was when we decided to use the money that we were going to use for IVF, because we did get a refund for, the unused portion. And we decided to do adoption. Mm-hmm. Went to an adoption agency, worked with them for about a year and a half. My hopes were high. I was certain that we were going to get a baby.
Mm-hmm. I remember that. I remember how hopeful you were. I remember how happy I was for you that we were onto this journey. And so this was a shocker.
Yeah. I get a call from a friend, and they said, hey, I have a friend who has a teenage daughter. Mm-hmm. They don't want to keep their baby. So they're planning to give it up for adoption. Here, can you give me your link? Because we had every couple had their own website, mm-hmm. And I remember the day. It was sometime in January. I think January 31st. Mm-hmm. I go to the website and I just get this just white page with words on it. It was in my website. And I was a bit shocked. I didn't pay attention. I didn't read it. I was just like, oh, okay, maybe I typed it in wrong. Mm-hmm. Do it again. Same thing. So I read it, and it says, as of January 31st, I believe it was 2017. This particular adoption agency filed for bankruptcy. Mm-hmm. We had no warning.
By money.
$38,000 gone.
And now coinciding with you're now starting to get symptoms of menopause.
Yeah.
So what were your symptoms like? What pushed us there?
I went into your office again for an annual exam because by this point I had known you several years. So I was just, following up. Mm-hmm. I get to your office. I'm never going to forget this. I was running late. I get there late. Your receptionist tells me, well, you're late 15 minutes. But your appointment's not today. It's tomorrow. Or it was the day before. I don't remember. And I just remember just breaking down. And I was just like, oh, what do you mean? You just don't want to see me. I'm already here. I drove an hour. I was so upset. Mm-hmm. You cracked open your door. And you're like, Miss Reyna. And you gave me the finger like, come in here. I was like, oh, crap. I'm in trouble. I was
lovingly.
Rude. Yeah. I was rude to her staff. She's going to get after me.
No.
So I start telling you what's going on. You ask me these questions. You're like, well, you're perimenopausal. What do you mean? But the only symptoms I was having then was just the mood swings, and the hair loss, weight gain. Mm-hmm. I could not lose weight.
Insomnia.
And insomnia. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I just thought I was stressing because of what had just happened. So I was just, saying, oh, this is probably just stress. Mm-hmm. Normal period still, regular. That was it.
People forget that now, you are going through this. You're a little bit of a shadow of your former self. And now the stresses are on, right?
Yep.
And it's really now time to refocus, to get things together. And then now we have you focused.
Yeah.
So what happens?
Then I look for another adoption agency.
Oh my God, yes.
And that one we worked with them for like 3 months, and then they just closed down. They just closed their doors. Luckily, the only thing that was lost there was $150 for the initial application. Mm-hmm. So then I finally said, you know what? This is probably meant to be. Mm-hmm. I'm not meant to have children, and I'm okay, and I accepted that. Mm-hmm. And I remember going into your office again for, it was like a whole year after or a few months after. And I remember telling you what happened. You asked me about what was going on, what's the status, any matches, so on and so on with the adoption agency. I told you what was going on. And I remember sitting there crying. And you tell me, okay, so you need an egg donor. I'm like, yes, but I didn't want one.
Mm-hmm. It's a hard bridge.
I didn't want one. Mm-hmm. And you asked me, why not? I said, because it's not mine. You said, okay, so was the adoption, but you were very open about that. And I said, darn it, she's right. I didn't even think about it that way, because I'm still thinking that I'm going to carry it, right, not knowing I couldn't. Mm-hmm. So I remember you telling me, we spoke about my mother, and she had just survived breast cancer for the second time. So we did the testing. And then that's when you told me you didn't recommend me doing any IVF or, anything that involved me taking an overload of hormones, which is pretty much what IVF does, or what it is. So I said, okay, great. Now I don't have eggs. Mm-hmm. But now I also need someone to carry my baby. I need a gestational carrier, a surrogate. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay. We sat down and talked, and you asked me, what are you afraid of? I said, what do you mean? Dr. Samuel was like, you've seen me an emotional wreck every time I come in here. Mm-hmm. What do you mean what I'm afraid of? I'm afraid of the heartbreak. Look at how much money I've lost. Mm-hmm. And you said, okay. Do you have the funds to do it again? I said, yeah, I do. Then do it. You've been through the heartbreak once. You already know what to expect. Did you survive? I said, yeah. Well, then do it. What are you afraid of? And I said, I feel like this is my sign. I've been given so many no's. Mm-hmm. I feel like this is God's way of telling me, maybe just, you're not meant to have kids. Mm-hmm. And you said, or maybe it's the universe's way of telling you, you have to try it. This is your last resort. And you told me you don't want to look back 10 years from now and tell yourself, I should have tried that. Try it now. And if it doesn't work, then you can look back 10 years from now and tell yourself, I tried everything and it did not work.
Live without regret.
Yep. And we tried. So,
yes,
I have a cousin who is the same age as I am. We're 2 months apart, and she was diagnosed. So after I left the meeting with you, you know, my appointment with you, I called my husband and I told him everything. And I remember driving home and then, you know, saying a little prayer, and I said, you know what, God, it's in your hands. And if you really want me to have a child, I think you need to send me a sign. Make it happen. And the very next day, my cousin calls me, hey, what's going on? You know, how did your appointment go? So on and so on. And she said, well, at this point, I already knew she was diagnosed with the same thing, premature ovarian failure. And she said, I was calling you I wanted to go over something with you. Oh, okay. So she tells me, hey, I called this office and this fertility clinic and we can share an egg donor. I'm like, okay, what does that mean? She's like, well, we pay this price and we, you know, get the half, you know, we get it half of I get half the eggs, you get half the eggs. And then you fertilize yours, I fertilize mine, and that's it. And I was just like, I remember looking up while I was driving, I was talking to her and I said, oh, okay.
That's crazy.
I called my husband. I was like, hey, such and such just called me. What do you think? Yeah, babe, whatever you want to do. He's always been very supportive since day one. I called her. We get set up. I have a surrogate in mind. That doesn't work out. The same day they called me to tell me, hey, you have successfully created 4 embryos. Oof. I'm excited. Well, sorry. First of all, they call me that morning and they tell me that we can't work with the surrogate that I originally chose. Then they call me, the clinic calls me and say, hey, congratulations, we have 4 embryos. And I remember telling them, well, it doesn't matter anymore because I don't even have a surrogate. And I just hung up on them.
We were close. Almost dice.
So this entire journey, a good friend of mine who was a labor and delivery nurse had been following up with me. Hey, how's it going? Blah, blah. I remember telling her, well, I don't have a surrogate. So I don't know what I'm going to do. Don't hear from her for like 2 days. Then she calls, just, I've been talking to my husband and I'm willing to carry your baby.
What?
And be your surrogate.
What?
It's like, I can't ask you for this. She's like, you didn't ask. I'm offering. I really want you. I really want to do this for you guys. I know your journey. She has been with me since the very first time when we were doing IVF. She was the one who offered to be my surrogate when we first started IVF. And I said, no.
And you weren't there.
I was like, I wasn't there. I was like,
there, yeah.
I need an egg donor. She was like, take my eggs, you know? I was like, no. Long story short, she offered. I've known her since I was 16. So at this point, I've known her for 22 years. And she carried our baby boy.
He's adorable. So we have a baby boy.
We do.
Oh my gosh. Scrumptious.
A COVID baby.
That's crazy. That's crazy. So now you have been through this incredible journey to get from, you're in the middle of nowhere, mentally, physically, emotionally, to the point where you're where you want to be, right? And firstly, I can tell you, you're one of the strongest people I've ever met, right? Because I have seen you at your lowest lows and how you bounce back every time. Like, I don't even know. I wish you could bottle your strength and like sell it. Then, we'd make some money.
I know, right?
But I want to know, really what I want to know is when you're talking to other women, because there are other women out there, not many, it's fairly rare, but barriers to continuing that journey, getting diagnosed, and continue. What do you think their barriers are, and what would you encourage them to do?
I think their barriers are that they don't know who to ask.
Right.
or what questions to ask, or they don't even know if there's anything really wrong with them. Again, because they may have regular cycles. When I posted, I was very open from the beginning when we had a successful pregnancy. I was very open and I said, this is what's going on. This is what I was diagnosed with, so on and so on. Dr. Samuels, I kid you not, I had 6 of my women friends reach out to me.
Shocked you.
Asked me so many questions. I said, look, I'm no medical professional, but this is my story. So this is probably where you can start, you know? Out of those 6 women, after they heard my story, now have children.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Now have children, some natural, 2 by egg donors, and 1 by adoption.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's crazy.
And you would never know.
No.
Because
you don't know.
It's something you don't talk about.
No. And what we've talked about also too, and that's important for people to understand, is that you now went into menopause so super early in your 30s, and your risk is like someone who's 51 years old.
Correct.
So we know, I mean, anybody can argue about hormones, but we have full permission from every governing body that using hormones, especially up to the age of 51, is going to protect you. It's going to decrease your risk of breast cancer. It's going to decrease your risk of osteoporosis. It's going to decrease your risk of cardiovascular disease, because all of those risks have increased tremendously because of the loss of your hormones.
Right.
And so it's not only important to find you guys from the perspective of, to make sure that you understand your fertility journey, and obviously dealing with all the symptoms of menopause that are coming way too early, but also from a preventive for your longevity, because now I got to keep you alive for this baby boy, right? Who's super scrumptious, right? And so we have got to stay on top of this so that I can keep your risks down as much as possible, keep you healthy, doing all the right things as if you were 51, right? And again, I think because we got that you look amazing.
Thank you.
You are just such an inspiration. And I am honored to be your physician, and I am obviously happy to help in any way I can. And I hope we continue this journey.
Absolutely.
I hope to see you as long as we're still here.
Absolutely.
And I hope that you can continue to inspire women who need to hear this incredible story, and who need to not lose faith, and who need to find practitioners who are invested in them, and who can go on the journey with them. So thank you again.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I want to share my story because I want people to understand that you don't have to be 58, to go through menopause.
Premature menopause is really got to find y'all.
Yep.